You're listening to Tuesday Morning Quarterbacks with Don Carpenter and Chris Brennel.
News Talk 1270, KIML. I figured I'd gross Chris and Vic out right before. Well, you can just imagine what happens when you have somebody go up in your sinuses and burn everything out. What comes out.
Sounds like fun.
Can we go straight into sports, please?
Okay. Well, we do have a lot of sports stuff we need to get to. Why don't we talk a little bit about the Pronghorns first? We have a little bit on the Roughriders as well, but we'll start off with the Pronghorns. It's a pretty eventful week.
Yeah, last week was pretty eventful for especially the Pronghorn women. Pronghorn women, head coach Will Ryder signed 2 local players, Taylor Deaton as well as Maddie Henshaw. I want to say that was Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday last week. They had it was Wednesday. They had the signing and good turnout for that. Taylor Deaton, I want to say 5'4". I think Henshaw 5'8". Chris, chime in.
You got it.
Chime in.
5'4", 5'8".
Both 5'8's taller than you.
But well, wait a minute, DC. We're the same. We're the same height. Okay. I'm like 5'8.5", DC.
Both.
I'm 5'8 3/4", so I stand up really straight.
I measured yesterday.
Both are guards. And, like I said, chime in when you want, Chris. The one thing, though, Taylor Deaton might be redshirting next year. And, Chris, I'll let you take over and explain why that would be the case.
Well, Taylor suffered an injury at the state tournament in game 1, so that probably has more to do with it than anything. So it'd be a nice time. That way she's not trying to rush and get back. She can get her knee all sorted out. And I don't think the knee's going to be a problem, especially if she does redshirt. You're talking about a pure point guard. That's how I would describe it. Taylor Deaton, she averaged just under 9 points per contest, but she was one of the top assist players in the game last year in the state. She was really good. Just under 5 assists per contest, so she does a good job of running things. And I think that's really what Coach Ryder wanted. He wanted a true point guard that can go out there, orchestrate everything. She's a good passer, great defender, by the way. I think, because of her good passing abilities and the way she handles the ball pretty well, people forget what she does on the defensive side. So that's what you're getting with Taylor Deaton.
Speaking with Taylor at the signing ceremony, it's 6-month waiting period or recovery time, I guess I should say. So I want to say it'd be like October when she'd be possibly be given the go. So, it might help her out to redshirt. She definitely learned a lot, I'm sure, under head coach Will Ryder, assistant coach Matt Strickland. And I believe, she was the one that said she might be redshirting. And I'm sure I didn't speak with head coach Will Ryder about it, but if she is okay with that or in the way she's bringing it up, I think she understands that might be the situation for Taylor in the fact that it's her left leg that I want to say it was an ACL and a meniscus that she had to get repaired on. So that's for Taylor Deaton. For Maddie Henshaw, once again, 5'8", she's a guard. How does she do on the season when it comes to scoring and everything?
Well, she's going to shoot threes. She's a good 3-point shooter. I believe she's shot around 36% from 3.
If I remember correctly, she was like I want to say she made like 67 out of 100 plus 170 attempts or something like that.
She was good from 3 land, and she averaged also close to 9. This is a very balanced team that played almost every player from varsity every game. So, when you look at points per game, you got to kind of take that into consideration that Coach Holst likes to sub in and out a lot. So the minutes were limited for both Deaton and Henshaw. You figure if they played, a lot more minutes, these two would have probably averaged in double figures, especially Henshaw with the way she shoots the 3 ball. Her shooting's very good. Good defender again. I think that's what Ryder's trying to do. He's trying to get some players that can defend the perimeter, and that's what he has in both Deaton and Henshaw.
And also, on Friday, and they did this signing, I think, in Burns, because I didn't get an email and I didn't hear anything about it here in Gillette. And I believe they, looking at the picture that Ryder posted, it doesn't look like a familiar background. So I believe they did it in Burns. It makes sense. They also signed a player by the name of Mackenzie Ward, who played for Burns High School. Taking a look here at the stats here for Mackenzie Ward. And this is off the GC Pronghorns website. I believe this is a press release written by Coach Ryder. 5'4" guard, scored 1,399 career points, 285 career steals, She holds the record for both those at the school level. She also holds the single season, single game records in points, 3-pointers, and steals. And for those of you that are not familiar, Burns is a 2A level school here in Wyoming. Mackenzie Ward, 3-time all-class 2A honoree. And, of course, she signed on Friday with Gillette College. She was on the Treasure, I think it's called the Treasure State team. Anyhow, it is the program that, or the tournament team, I guess I should say, that assistant coach Matt Strickland coached. I know that Mackenzie Ward was on there. I believe Taylor Deaton was scheduled to be on there. Of course, she did attend it. She didn't play because of the knee. And I think Maddie Henshaw, I believe, was also playing in that. And the tournament was held in, I think, at Billings for the Treasure State. So those are the 3 that have signed so far with the Pronghorn women. So Mackenzie Ward out of Burns and 2 local players from Campbell County High School, those 2 being Taylor Deaton as well as Maddie Henshaw. As far as I haven't really had a chance to speak too much with head coach Will Ryder because I'm sure they're still recruiting and they're busy. No word on who is officially coming back as of yet for Gillette College from last year. So we'll have to see what happens as to who he'll bring back, but we'll try and get some information on that a little later on down the road. For Gillette College on the men's side, and I'm getting this information from the National Letter of Intent signees site, which is where when you sign a player, you need to post it to the National Letter of Intent site so all the other teams across the nation know you've signed this player is going to this school and stuff, and this is on the National Junior College Athletic Association site. For Gillette College on the men's side, 2 official returnees based on the signings on the NLI site would be Cavell Bigby Williams, big tall guy from London, England, and also returning Marquise Grayson. Marquise Grayson didn't get too much playing time. That wasn't because he wasn't good. It was because it was just the depth of the squad. And he definitely got some good playing time, some good minutes. He had a couple big plays in the Region 9 tournament. He had a nice big 3-pointer in the national tournament game that they played in as well. So Marquise Grayson also is coming back, and those 2 are on the list. A third one, and I haven't had a chance to speak with head coach Sean Neary because I believe he was with his family. I believe his family went down to Phoenix, Arizona. His kids do play basketball as well. They signed a guy from Sugar Land, Texas, and I talked with assistant coach Tony Chamber this morning. I wanted to verify this. Brandon Jones, who played for Gillette College last year, who was most likely going to go to Cal State, his father was in Hutchinson, Kansas with us. He was also with us in Powell, Wyoming. He came up to visit to watch his son play. He was really talking to assistant coach Chamber about this one kid he knows down there. Brandon Jones's father is an AAU coach down in the Houston area. And, this is how recruiting works. And we were talking about recruiting with Winkler last week, how you kind of how people,
especially in the smaller level. I mean, right. It's all about who you know. So anyhow, Brandon Jones's father said, you got to look at this kid. And I remember them talking about this kid specifically. And I remember, assistant coach Chamber saying, is it this Cameron kid? And I verified with Chamber. It is the guy they were looking at, who they really heard from Brandon Jones's father, who recommended they take a look at. But anyhow, it's from Sugar Land, Texas. Fort Bend Clements is the high school. I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name. It's Oluytan. So Oluytan, I guess, for right now. We'll get
that'll work for right now.
Yeah, I think that's close enough for our purposes.
So anyhow, Cameron Oluytan, and when we find out what the correct pronunciation is, I'll correct it, and I'll make sure I memorize it. So far, 3 players for the men's team. And don't look at me like that, Coach Winkler. Go away. We're not allowed to let you look at the window in our studio. 3 players for the Pronghorn men, 3 players for the Pronghorn women on the NLI site for that have signed so far for the Pronghorn women and the Pronghorn men. So
and D1 signing for Sarp.
Yes, Sarp Gabelolu did sign. He's going to Montana State. So you have him going to Montana State. Quentin Everett's going to Montana State. Bernard Suggs is going to Washington State. Lorenzo Bonham is going to Southern Miss. And those are the ones that I know for official that have signed and are going places. There are others that have opportunities. I haven't heard about Brandon Jones as of yet, as if he has officially signed. If he was going to do it, he would have done it most likely on the 8th, I believe, of April. So.
Okay, and of course we're going to move on to the Roughriders for a few minutes. Roughriders started their season. Weather wasn't really cooperating this past week, though.
Well, it was on Friday and Saturday, but not
so much
on
Sunday. I woke up on Sunday, and there was a chance I might have had to come out here even in my incapacitated condition to run the board because I didn't know. But I guess I should turn on your mic. Yeah, it's Sunday mornings. I'm usually not that incapacitated, but I saw snow in the ground. I was like, no baseball today.
Nope, exactly.
Yeah, so
well, they got things going last Friday, and they run-ruled Rapid City Stevens. Good start to the year. They scored 25 runs in 10 innings. They won both of those games, the doubleheader, 13-3 in Game 1, 12-1 in Game 2. In the 10 innings they played that night, they scored in 9 of them. So the offense got going. Now, the next day was a different story. They played Rapid City 320 post. They were swept in the 2-game doubleheader. Lost Game 1. They were actually run-ruled themselves in 5 innings, 13-3. And then they come back. They were down 8-5 in Game 2 in the 9th inning and had a tying run on but couldn't get him around. They lost 8-7 to that Stars team. That Stars team is really good. They took 3 of 4 from Gillette last year. So the Roughriders start the year 2-2. And there were some issues as far as they got struck out 17 times Saturday. They combined for 7 errors, and that's kind of misleading in the sense there was a couple of bloopers in right and left field that could have – there was a couple of calls that could have been errors as well. So some mishaps defensively and getting struck out 17 times just equals that equals 0-2. You're not going to win ball games like that. And that's pretty much what 10th-year Rider manager Nate Perleyberg was talking about during our interview we recorded yesterday.
Joining me now is 10th-year Rough Rider manager Nate Perleyberg. Hey, Nate, how are you?
Good, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Friday, your team started hot, scoring 25 runs in the first 2 games against Rapid City Stevens. Your offense then struggled in Game 1 against the Stars, but bounced back in Game 2, scoring 7 runs. What were your impressions of your offense?
You know, I felt like when we put balls in play, good things happen. You know, we've talked a lot about our speed this year, and the problem on Saturday was we didn't get enough ball to play. We didn't give them enough chances to make mistakes. We struck out 17 times on Saturday in the combined 2 games. So, you know, out of 42 possible outs, that's a lot of free outs that we basically gave them. So I was a little disappointed in that, but you know, a lot of things to work on from this weekend, which is what early season baseball is about, and you know, we've got some things to target this week in practice.
Now, you mentioned the strikeouts. I noticed a lot of them were strikeouts looking. What are some things to remedy getting struck out?
Well, I mean, we got to adjust umpires. I mean, each umpire is different, and this isn't Major League Baseball. I mean, we're going to get umpires that have different zones each day, and no, that's not an excuse. We got to make an adjustment early. If someone goes down looking on a pitch outside or high or whatever, we've got to come back and relay that to the rest of our hitters. And I just thought that was a poor excuse to our guys, you know, complaining about this umpire, that umpire. And we've got to play baseball and quit worrying about things we can't control.
Now on to pitching. Silty and Langdon put together good starts on Friday. On Saturday, pitching was an issue. What do you want to see from your staff in the coming weeks?
Yeah, I thought Silty and Langdon both really threw the ball well on Friday night, and Harris, Kubacher, are 2 relievers that night. On Saturday, it was really kind of I wouldn't say poor, but really inconsistent. I thought at the time made good pitches, but you know, some mechanic things, some things were just you know, get disrupted by guys on base maybe, or you know, having to pitch from the stretch a little more than we've worked on so far in our bullpen sessions. And the other thing is it's the first time out for the year, so you know, we expect some of that early on. we were surprised that we thought Saturday we had a pretty good, we had it set up pretty good to go in there Saturday and compete, and to not get any was disappointing, but that's ball, and I thought 320 outplayed us on Saturday.
Now, on defense, there were some mishaps Saturday. What are some ways your defense can improve?
We've got to improve quickly. We were not very good defensively all week, really. We've got some spots that we're going to have to try some different guys at, and just the overall defensive kind of philosophy of communication. I mean, we would not fly balls that guys were all running to, and then nobody would take charge and take it. And we gave lots of X outs. Really, the difference on Saturday was, we struck out 17 times, and we gave them, sometimes 4 or 5 outs an inning, and you're just not going to win games when you do that.
Now, oftentimes I'd like to be a fly on the wall when coaches talk to their teams. What was your overall message to your ball club after the losses in Rapid City?
Well, we talk about it being a learning experience, and kind of what I said at the end of the day. There's 4 results that can happen. You can win and play really good. You can win and play poorly. You can lose and play really well, and you can lose and play poorly. And I really felt like get wrapped off and played pretty poorly. So, I don't know if mentally we were really that focused. I don't know if Friday we felt like we were pretty good after winning, in the way that we play, and kind of thought we could just walk in there and they'd give it to us or what. But, it was definitely a learning point. And, one thing about baseball is you got to be able to respond to adversity. And I was hoping game 2 would turn out a little better, and we could kind of, mark that down as a step taken. But, I expect us to bounce back Wednesday and put together a couple of good days of practice here and get back in the win column on Wednesday.
Well, thanks, Nate. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
And there you go. It's Riders coach Nate Perleyberg. Thanks, Chris, for the interview. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with Coach Winkler in just a minute. News Talk 1270 KIML.
An hour without politics? Yes.
It's about time.
Tuesday morning quarterbacks on News Talk 1270 KIML.
Okay! Game on! They score! Paid that man his money!
What a game we got going. Lucic mashes Jones. Crimea River.
He scores! I'm a lead farmer!
Oh, Thomas Ross Kovalchuk! Ah, you better pay him in rubles. That was an unbelievable save off the Russian.
And this series is going back to where Jimmy Hoffa is!
It's time for the Gillette Wild Report with Coach Tom Winkler.
He scores! Ball! The meatloaf!
And the Tuesday morning quarterbacks on News Talk 1270 KIML.
He scores! Summertime is coming to Philadelphia!
Oh, if we could only tell these stories on the air without losing an FCC license.
We could tell him. He just got to edit them.
Well, we'll talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs in a minute. We have a good amount of time. Okay, so during the break, Coach Winkler was telling us a little bit about his days in the ECHL, the East Coast Hockey League.
Well, we got to clarify that when I did my internship with Norfolk, and I had the privilege of playing in an alumni game, and after the alumni game, a bunch of the old guys who were old ECHL hardcore minor hockey guys, we were having dinner, and the stories came out about their coach, who was a certifiable lunatic, and there were some classics.
See, and this is what I think of when I think of minor league hockey, because we're the same generation. I grew up. Now where I grew up, we had the Hershey Bears, which are a respected franchise as far as minor league hockey. But we also had the Baltimore Skipjacks, who lasted about 5 years, and were a pretty rough team.
Well,
Baltimore.
but that was American League.
Yeah,
those were American League teams, which has always kind of been the top, the AAA level of developmental hockey. But back in the day of the old Eastern Hockey League and the early days of the ECHL, I mean, it was mayhem. And like I said, the coach was crazy. Like I was telling, the owner, the Hampton Roads Admirals original owner was a very upstanding businessman, and then his coach was just a lunatic. And if attendance started to dip, he had the green light to attack referees, attack players, and Brof did. I had the privilege of meeting.
This is the coach doing this.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was a coach, and because Blake Cullen was the owner, and his take on things was always, you know what, I can pay the $2,500 fine as long as we have 2,000 more people in the stands. It's going to make up for it, and ticket sales and concessions and everything else. And I actually had the privilege of meeting John Brophy, and he was in pretty bad shape at the time. He was older, and he had just been in a car accident, and he had swung by Hampton Roads for, I think he was being inducted into the Admirals Hall of Fame, and, he was he was very, very cordial, and I'm sitting here thinking, wait a minute, this is a guy who chucked a hacksaw at a player and, punched a guy in a handshake line and tackled the referee. I mean, the stories these guys were telling, but I'll tell the one about the bus because that's just the epitome. But they were playing Richmond, a huge rival, crosstown rival, and a fan was by the bus, and Bro got tired of listening to him, so he just one punched him and took him out. And of course, it's a big ruckus. He goes back in the arena, and the players were telling me this. That they're like, hey, like it's Slapshot. Hey, we want the Hansons, right? Where's Brophy? Well, the players had put him in the stick bag, and they carried him out and put him underneath the bus in the stick bag and drove about 20 miles outside of town and stopped the bus and opened the stick bag and let him out. I mean, this is a pro coach riding in the cargo hold of a bus to avoid the police because he just KO'd some drunk fan in Richmond. But you know what? I mean, that's, these guys are telling these stories, and I'm looking at them, and they're like, no, they're like, Winks, we can't make this up. We're telling you, this guy was just a moron.
I guess it's good enough that he was short enough he could fit in a stick bag.
He wasn't. I mean, he was a big dude, but
he was just in there. He was in the fetal position.
You can only imagine. And I remember sitting next to a guy named Donnie Gagnon, and he's just eating a steak, and he's not even breaking stride, and he's like, yep. That's only one of them. There are other things we had to do too. He's like, he goes, I tell my kids this and they don't believe it. And he goes, the guy was just a laugh a minute, and he was a great coach. He was a great motivator, but anytime, we could almost tell. You'd look at a building and say, oh, Friday night we're a couple thousands short. Something's gonna happen. And sure enough,
and I can't even imagine. Imagine you're the cop that pulls over that bus, and you're a downstate Virginia cop, and you pull this bus over. Boy, why is that stick bag breathing?
Probably.
Vic spent time in Virginia. You know what it's like.
I'm from Virginia. Hampton Roads and Richmond, probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours away.
Yeah.
Richmond, is the capital of Virginia, and Hampton Roads is towards Norfolk, Virginia Beach area.
Very blue collar.
I don't
Military.
go down that part of the state, but yeah, I've been down there.
And the other thing that's kind of cool about this is my brothers were Navy, Navy guys, and they were stationed there, and they used to go to those games, and they'd be like, oh yeah, Brof was great. He just, we knew he was gonna do something. And he's like, we used to buy tickets right behind the bench because, man. He's like, he'd go off on these guys like you wouldn't believe, and they saw it, and I'm like, yeah, well, were you guys there when he attacked the player? And they're like, which time?
Which time?
Now, can you imagine in this day and age, of instant media? Can you imagine a league that had that kind of shenanigans going on? It would be it would be impossible.
It's an evolution of the sport, and those older. Back in the day, like I said, the Eastern League and the original East Coast League, I mean, you go watch videos of it, and I mean, it was tough, nasty, mean, crazy hockey. It's just how it was. It's just how just how it was. I mean, there weren't as many opportunities. The game, to some degree, and you could probably argue this, but probably wasn't as skilled and as skating oriented as it is now. And unfortunately, it does kind of have a little bit of a reputation for that. But it was interesting because my time there with that organization doing the internship, the transition to the American League from the East Coast League for those people there was very difficult. And it was difficult because the American Hockey League is a more skilled brand of hockey. There's less fighting. There's less, you have legitimate NHL prospects where they weren't used to that, because there were a lot of guys that played like, Dennis McEwen, who was a guy I got to know, and a friend of mine from there. Dennis played, he played, I think, 10 or 11 years in Hampton Roads, which he liked it. It was East Coast level. He had some breaks in a few games in the American League, but he liked it there, so he stayed there. He stayed there and played on a year-to-year basis. He became a part of the community. I mean, Chad Ackerman, Pat Cavanaugh, all these guys that I knew in Hampton that played for him, that was why they were still there. Rod Taylor is a East Coast Hockey League legend, but, the community got so used to that style of play, and these guys with the roster, even at that level at that time, not having so many different, not having the turnover that the American League has, there was such a connection between the community and the team. The American League comes in all of a sudden, and now you're rotating guys in and out. There's not as much community involvement because they're playing more of a schedule and traveling more. All these factors that, we would get 6,000 people for a Friday night game against Hershey, and that would be great. Where back in the East Coast League days, they'd get 10,000 people standing room only for a Wednesday night game against Greensboro or Richmond or teams like that. So a lot of those fans in that area, I mean, it's a great hockey area, and they definitely do still support the team. But I think, one of the things I learned is that the people there would have, I not saying they didn't appreciate the American League, but they're actually going back into the East Coast League next season, and I think you're probably going to see them go back to the old blue and gold and Anchor and the Hampton Roads Admirals days, and you're probably going to see a lot more people in the building than what they've had with their time in the American League. And it's just kind of a, it's a great, Norfolk in that area is a great minor league town. They have a great the Norfolk Tides, which is Baltimore's AAA farm team. Yeah, they support them.
Used to be the Mets back in the day.
Yep, and they support them very well, and they supported the Admirals in the American League but much better in the ECHL. So
I know we're talking about Virginia, and there are a lot of people they don't have a clue what we're talking about. They don't care. But wasn't there a team in Lynchburg or in Roanoke back in the day?
Roanoke.
Was that a ECHL? What was that?
Yep.
I remember them. I remember when they disbanded. I remember that.
Yeah, they used to have. They had a really great circuit with Hampton Roads, Richmond, Roanoke, Greensboro.
Jeez.
They had that whole. I mean, and it was just the rivalries. I mean, if you YouTube the Greensboro Admirals brawl from the playoffs many years back, and I mean the puck isn't even dropped, and you had 5 fights on the ice, and the goalies got into it, and I mean we're playing in this alumni game, and in between the periods they put this video up on the screen of this brawl, and there were actually quite a few people at this alumni game, and the place just exploded because everybody remembered it. And the goalie who was on our team, Mark Michaud was his name, I'm standing next to him, and he just looks at me and he goes, "Watch this in about 10 seconds. He goes, "You're going to see something I only did once in my career." And all of a sudden you hear the announcer go, "And here comes Michaud. He's taking his gear off." And I mean, he's got no upper body stuff off. He's skating up the ice, taking his chest protector off, his jersey off. He gets to this other goalie in a T-shirt and just starts wailing on him. And it's like, he's like, "Yep, I only did that once. Because watch in about another 20 seconds, you'll see why." And the other guy gets a hold of him and just starts, just throttling him. I mean, it was just... And when these guys were just laughing about it, they're like, "Oh my gosh, it was just a crazy time." But the stories and the personalities, it was just, it was crazy. Crazy.
And for point of reference, the ECHL is the league that Rapid City plays in. I mean,
now, yes,
yeah,
yep.
they got expanded in the early 2000s.
The structure's changed too, because many years ago at this time the ECHL was not affiliated. Now it's actually in the structure of the NHL. You have guys that are on NHL contracts, American League contracts, and then ECHL contracts under that.
And I think and all of professional sports kind of suffers from this now. I mean, it used to be, even in baseball, you'd have guys that would labor in the minors for 20 years. You have, guys, you watch Bull Durham. I mean, these guys really, a lot of them never have a chance to make the major leagues, but they can make a living. They can be part of the community, and you don't see that as much anymore. It's kind of a shame, because I mean I understand that's how business works these days, and
it's a younger man's game too.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're right. If you start to get in that 25, 26-year-old range and you're still playing in the East Coast League, you're not, you may get an American League call-up at some point in time on an emergency basis, but the reality is that's where you've maxed out and where you're going to go. And there are a lot of guys I know that made Kevin Kerr, for instance, and he was actually, this guy I coached against down in the South, and Kevin's a great guy, and he was the actual all-time goal scorer in professional hockey. He played 18 or 19 years in various leagues, everywhere from the American League down to the United League to some of the lower pro leagues. And, Kersey had a great career. He loved it, wouldn't trade a minute of it. And for a while, I think it was a 2-year span where he held that actual record of having the most goals of any player that's ever played professional hockey from the NHL down before he was passed up. And, he was another guy that probably was suspended for over 200 games in his career. And I said, one day we're playing in a charity game up in Boston, and he's like trying to go after some guy on the other team in a charity game. And I'm like, Kersey, what are you doing? He's like, I can't turn it off. I'm like, come on, man. And I said, Kersey, how many more goals would you have scored if you weren't suspended for 200 games? He looks at me and he goes, I probably wouldn't have scored half as many goals because people knew I was crazy. He goes, I would do crazy stuff, and I'd get 10 games here, 20 gagames here, 15 games here, and you know what? I'd come back on the ice, and nobody would go anywhere near me because they know I'm not afraid to break a stick over your head.
All right, now I want to. We're talking about minor league hockey, so why don't we just stick with it? In minor league baseball, and I worked in minor league baseball. That was my first job. I worked minor league baseball for a few years, except for when you get down to the very, very low level. Most of the time, it's one team that they're affiliated with. Is that the same way in hockey, or no? I don't think it is.
Well,
I know, like the Hershey Bears are the Washington Capitals.
Hershey Bears, but then they also have an East Coast affiliate, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure who it is.
But for example, we're talking about the Rapid City Rush right now. Rapid City Rush, I don't believe they're affiliated with just one team.
Actually, I have it right here. Some of the ECHL teams are affiliated with the Rush are unaffiliated.
Yeah, they're unaffiliated, but
some teams do have multiple.
But
right.
But also you got to understand, all these Central Hockey League teams where the Rush used to play in, they got a late start last year because the CHL was basically merged with the ECHL, and they did it last June or July, somewhere in there. It didn't happen. It happened very quickly. So I don't necessarily think I would think going forward that you probably see some NHL team affiliate. Like St. Louis is their American League affiliate is Chicago Wolves. Their East Coast affiliate, I believe, is the Evansville Icemen. So, they have, most of these NHL teams do have an American League affiliate and now an East Coast League affiliate, where for many years they didn't.
Yeah, and I imagine that they'll pick those up. But I mean, and there are a couple teams that have two affiliations, and the teams they'll just decide how they're. I assume they decide how they're going to share those prospects.
Well, and the other thing that's happening
probably
too,
first come first serve.
Well, with hockey now too, what's also starting to happen is you're starting to see a streamline in the system where it's clear NHL, American League, East Coast League, and then really right now under the East Coast League you have the Southern Professional League, which is probably the single A league of minor hockey. And I think what's going to happen is you used to have the Central League, the Western Professional League, the International League, the United League. So you would have your NHL, AHL, East Coast League, and then you had 4 to 5 other rival single A leagues that were competing against each other. And now what's happening is you're seeing the CHL, which was by far the strongest double A hockey level at the time. They merged with the ECHL, and now you have the SP. So, really you've got your AAA, which is the American League, your AA, which is the East Coast League, or the ECHL. They don't call it the East Coast Hockey League anymore. They just call it the ECHL. And again, when you have a team in Alaska, it's kind of hard to call it the East Coast Hockey League.
3 teams in California.
Yeah, and then you obviously have single A going down with the Southern Pro League, and the Southern Pro League is really in that, it's that southeast footprint and a little bit starting to creep into the Midwest, but I wouldn't be surprised. They'll probably try and get 2 or 3 more teams, get that league up to 12 or 15 teams in there, and then you have 12 and 15 in that league, 30 in the ECHL, 30 in the American League, 30 in the NHL.
It's almost like a vertical marketing stream where the players just go straight through.
It's streamlined now for sure.
All consolidated.
That's how it is in minor league baseball. For example, and I think I was either talking to Chris about this or Terry. I know
we have about 30 seconds.
Jason Worth for the Washington Nationals. He started out the season for the Potomac Nationals, the team that I worked for in the minor leagues when I my first job. They were with they were with the Reds and the Cardinals when I was there, but they're only 20 minutes south of D.C. So he needed a rehab start. Jason Worth started out his season this year with the single A advanced affiliate of the Washington Nationals, 20 minutes down the road, and I think he just got sent out after the rehab start.
Well,
so that's
a great advantage when it's location wise, and that's why, I know we're running out of time here, but like with Norfolk was Anaheim's affiliate. They were Tampa Bay's for many years when I was there, and then they switched over to Anaheim 2 years ago. Well, now Anaheim is going, you know what? We're going to put these guys in Ontario, California, because they're 45 minutes from us as opposed to all the way across the country.
Right.
So you're starting to see even the American League, the Eastern teams in the National Hockey League are affiliating with the Eastern American League teams, and Midwest and West are starting to go with the Western teams.
And that's kind of been minor league sports story from the beginning. I mean, there's always shifting affiliations and that kind of stuff. Okay, well, we didn't even get a chance to talk about the NHL playoffs. We'll talk about it next week. They'll be going on.
Oh yeah.
Any really? I mean, who do you think's going to win the whole thing? Just one word.
I sentimentally, I got to say St. Louis, but I mean, there's some unbelievable series and teams. It's going to be awesome. I mean, it's going to be unbelievable 2 months of hockey.
Yeah, well, and hey, for the first time in a couple of years, I'm pretty excited, even though my team is not in it, but that's all right. Devils, not a very good team this year. Probably won't be for a long time.
Well, there's other teams that are worse. You could be the Toronto Maple Leafs fan.
Well, I know a couple. It's rough. Okay, we'll see you next week, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Stay tuned for Rush.
What you gonna do, brother, when Don Carpenter runs wild on you? KIML, brother.